calling me because the audio messed up again?
That's exactly what I'm doing. Eventually I'll get this, but the sound of the car wash behind us and as the trucks passed by us overwhelmed our voices many, many times. There's a couple stretches where it's okay, but for the most part it wasn't.
That's funny because we both have big voices.
I know. So the plan is let's just talk about parables on the phone.
Sounds good.
So
I can do that. Wait, do you still have pictures of us holding the signs and waving?
yes, I do. And
Do you have the part about my awesome God incident, the fact that I was wearing the t-shirt, not even knowing that I was going to be holding signs later on?
Yes, I do. And I could even slow that part down so people could recognize that was going on at that moment. So,
Yes.
I started by saying, remember that class I took from Arlen Hultgren at Luther Seminary all those years ago, and he made us write parables in addition to learning about Jesus's parables. And I was a terrible parable writer, it turned out.
I did not take that class from. I know we have the book, but I did not take that class. So tell me about this.
So I don't remember the parable. I just remember it was bad. But I do equate parables to what parents do with their children sometimes, and they tell stories to their kids using like moral of the story. Think of Aesop's fables type. So like when Andreas was young, I might have said, Andreas, there once was a little boy named George who played with matches under his bed, but it started a fire and the whole house burnt down, and then they were homeless and had to live in the garage. The end.
That's harsh.
I told you I'm not great at parables, but that was a parable. It's one thing meaning another thing, and that's what parables basically are. Even when Jesus was telling parables, because he was using them to illustrate a point. And the first thing that Arlen taught us was figure out who Jesus is. And so if we're going with the Good Samaritan for the longest time, and still today, I think of the Samaritan, the Jew who is not Jewish enough, as the God figure in the story, and that he is rejected by both the priest and the junior priest, and so you take away from it what you want. But at the time, Jesus's listeners would have said the power is rejecting Jesus, and they're not following the law the way they're supposed to, basically.
Right.
And so I had an epiphany on this. That because we're supposed to figure out, after we figure out who God is in the story, maybe we need to figure out who we are. And so my epiphany, my brilliant idea is this. I mean, for years, and even still sometimes, I can easily identify with the junior priest or the full priest who just ignore what's going on and just go on because they're so important, sort of look down on people. But
I find myself the one but just beaten up, lying in the ditch, just looking up from the ground and needing help.
Exactly, and I think that's at the heart of this parable is that I'm starting to identify more as, and I can see humankind as the people who get beat up in this world by this world, and where do we look to for help? And honestly, if the Jesus figure is the Samaritan, then really that's the place to look, because eventually everything goes away and God remains. And so I think that's an important lesson. But by the same token, maybe, just maybe, we're called to also identify with the Samaritan in the story and take on the role of the caregiver and taking care of those who the world is just beating up.
Well, the other part of that with the Samaritan is they were hated. It wasn't just, be good, be kind, be a caregiver. We're talking receiving help, being helped by someone who we did not relate to. at all. I mean, there was some incredible animosity between the groups, and so that in my head really plays into it too, and especially in this area, we're incredibly divided, and here we have a biblical lesson that reminds us once again we're not alone. This isn't the first time this has happened,
and it won't be the last time either. And so we're called to understand people as God's favorites, not that there's a popularity contest, because the world plays that. And I talked about that in a devotional with the kids last Saturday, where I talked about pecking order and who's more important than other people. Well, I don't think God plays that ever.
Yeah,
we're all important to God.
And, yeah, exactly.
And so
except I'm his favorite, because that's what beloved means.
Right. And so we switched signs about halfway through this video, and then you recognized that of the three signs, which one ended up getting the most response?
Hope.
Do you think that because hope is in such a short supply these days? I don't know.
We hear about hope and have hope. Yeah, it's in short supply. No, it's not in short supply. It's someone like you has hope enough for lots and lots of people, and faith allows me anyway to find hope. The sun shining, that reminds me of hope. But yeah, I think that's why it was most popular.
But I've always noticed that even wanting hope is hope in itself. And if we're going to live into a better tomorrow, it's really going to have to be person to person. There's no walking to the other side of the road. It's really reaching out to one another fundamentally, and that's a challenge.
It is, and yet I think this last year has provided some incredible opportunities. Families playing games together, people making more phone calls and sending cards and letters, and making the most of celebrations. When you have an opportunity to celebrate, well, go big or go home.
Right, and so let's talk a little bit about, so I'm going to, I have the three signs here at church now, and I'm going to offer the opportunity for a family or a household to take the signs home with them and stand by the side of the road themselves.
Nice.
And experience that. And I'll put it out there.
Yeah.
I got a headache heading out to do this, and I don't know why necessarily, because I'm not normally a shy guy. But it was a little bit of a challenge even for me, and I know that as Lutherans and Midwesterners, it's hard for us to get out there with Jesus and just say that sort of stuff. But I appreciated it.
Well, I'll confess that when we were at the first place and there were, that corner was already taken, and then you wondered about other corners, and so we just started to drive. Dear Lord, please let there be people at every corner Darrow finds, and that prayer was answered many times until you found a spot. And I'll tell you what, as much as I was afraid to do it, it was incredibly, it filled me with this incredible joy at the people who would wave or honk or, as they passed by. That was neat.
And it really was, because can you share hope by holding a sign that says hope by the side of the road?
Yes, we did.
We did. Isn't that crazy? So we were
filled. I was, for one, was filled with hope too. So thank you for letting me be a part of that. Thank you for asking.
No, I'm glad we got to do that. So thank you for doing that with me. God bless you, my love. I love you so much.
Love you too.
And my headache went away, by the way. during that.
Yay.
That was a good thing. So, okay, we'll talk later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Jen.